Do you find that after taking the time to work out the notes and repeating them a few times, you find that you can play quite a bit of your new piece from memory, and then the next day it feels like you have never seen these notes before and have to work out everything all over again? Does working out the notes take so long that once you've got them, you'd rather memorize them quickly instead of reading the music again? This can be so frustrating. On one hand, you feel like your memory is helpful and memorizing feels easier than reading music. But if you're good at memorizing, why you're back to square zero the next day? And if you keep memorizing, how can you be sure that you also work on reading music so it's not as hard next time? My name is Zuzanna, I'm a harpist and a harp teacher, and in today's episode I will share with you a few tips on how to make sure you're still practicing reading music, but also how to make the good memory that you've got your ally and use it to your advantage while reading music. Let's dive in. First, well done to you for making the first step and spotting the problem. Although there's nothing wrong with memorizing music, thanks to being mindful when practicing, you recognize that it has become a bit of an unhelpful habit, which is great because being mindful is also part of the solution. The next step is trying to spot this habit when it happens. Then, next time you notice yourself starting to turn away from the music and playing from memory, right at this moment you will be able to make a choice. Do I want to go back to the score and play this bit again while following the music, or am I actually consciously working on memorizing the piece? We will get to the memorizing at the end of this video, so make sure you stay with me until the end. A good way to make sure you catch the very first moment when you move away from the music is counting the number of repetitions of a particular section, so you can then answer a question after how many repeats am I starting to play this from memory? This also gives you a hint as to when you should start paying more attention. If you usually start your practice from the same place, you will likely soon start memorizing that place you keep going back to and starting from. Try to avoid always going from the beginning. Analyze the piece so you know what happens in different sections and pick at least a few places other than the beginning that could be your starting points. When you work on these smaller sections, make sure you're very clear about which place is really the one that needs attention and what's the smallest bit in there that you need to practice. Once you've found your smallest tricky bit, challenge yourself to go back from there. When we work on smaller chunks and put them together, we naturally want to keep adding chunks that continue further from where we are. So try doing the opposite. Once you've got your tricky bit sorted, add a few notes just before. This is one of the most powerful and efficient strategies. It makes it almost impossible to unconsciously memorize anything if every time you start memorizing you get something new at the beginning. You can see how this works in one of my earlier tutorials where I've been using this strategy for putting hands together in my arrangement of Silent Night. It is a very demanding type of practice and requires a lot of discipline, but it really works, so make sure you check it out. If you think that the reason you're memorizing so quickly is to avoid reading the notes, you should make sure that you're also giving yourself opportunities to gain more confidence with reading music, away from your pieces. This is so important for anyone who wants to improve their reading, but especially for those of you who are the lucky ones to have a really good memory and memorize things quickly. So make sure you find a few minutes to read through some easy pieces or exercises before getting to your usual repertoire. This will be also a really good way of mentally warming up before you start reading music in your pieces. If you find reading and playing hands together or learning bass clef especially challenging, make sure you check out the resources for reading music that I'm linking to in the description of this video. If you want to keep challenging yourself while practicing your pieces and to make sure that instead of instant memorizing you also get to practice reading music, try to break up your practice a little bit more. Remember the first tip we talked about today, being mindful? These two go really well together. When you're working on a piece and start noticing that you're playing from memory, or if you know that it normally takes about 4 repetitions of a chunk for you to memorize it, stop right there. And then move to practicing something different. It can either be a completely different piece or a different section of the one you worked on before if it's not too similar to what you had done earlier. After a few minutes you can come back to the first section and have another go at playing it with music. Be also really mindful about that other bit you started practicing. Don't let yourself memorize this one either. This kind of practice again requires a lot of self-discipline, as our brains are not keen at all to switch so quickly between the tasks, especially when working on something challenging. So it can be rather exhausting, but also very, very effective, and it's definitely worth it. As I said before, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being able to put things in your memory quickly. Memorizing music is a skill, and a very useful one. Now, there is a way to use your good memory to your advantage and to help you improve at reading music. Before I tell you all about it, we need to go back a little bit and have a closer look at the process that happens when you're memorizing something, both spontaneously and deliberately. The reason why one day you can play a section of music easily without looking at the score, and the next day you can't remember anything and have to start back from square zero, is that most likely you were using your short-term memory, also known as working memory. This kind of memory relies heavily on acoustic cues, and in case of a musical instrument, also on the muscle memory. In order to transfer what you've learned from the short to long-term memory, you need to make the content that you're memorizing meaningful to you. And to use a more scientific term, you need to encode it semantically. What does that even mean? Let me demonstrate using this short section as an example. Your short-term memory will encode this little tune acoustically, meaning after you hear it a couple of times you will start recognizing the melody, and you may even be able to sing it back. Your fingers will learn that they begin further apart and need to start by moving one after another from fourth to first, and then they get closer together and move from first back to fourth. The fingers will likely just remember what it feels like. They will not remember all the information that I just explained about staying further apart or moving back together. Now, for a successful transfer to a long-term memory, you need some more information. So, when your brain forgets the melody and the muscles lose the memory of the movement, your mind still has some kind of a story that will help you retrieve this pattern from the memory. The easiest way to come up with a story is to imagine you want to explain how to play this short snippet to someone who has no idea about harp or music. So, they have no idea which string is which, apart from seeing that some of them are red or blue and knowing that fingers are numbered from 1 to 4. How I described our progress earlier, with fingers starting further apart and going up, then coming closer together and going down, it is a good start of a story. Now, we need to make it even more detailed, so this person who we pretend has no idea about the harp can also understand it. So you may want to tell them something along these lines. Your fourth finger starts on the lowest red string, your third finger is a string apart, and so is the second finger. While thumb reaches to the red string above the second, then you're playing starting from the lowest note, fourth, third, second, and then fingers 2, 3, 4 will have to go to the 3 strings that are just below the highest note. So now all of your fingers are on the neighboring strings. Then you're going to play the notes from the highest to the lowest. One extra information you may want to add to this story is that the rhythm stays the same, meaning there are no notes that would be longer or shorter in this passage. Of course, this is a lot of information to remember, but when you tell it to yourself as you're learning this snippet for the first time, then go to do something else, come back again, revise the story and repeat a few more times, you will soon memorize it. Your story will likely convey some patterns, like fingers moving one after another or playing on the neighboring string. And here's the best part. Now, it's time to check how your story is reflected in the score. You can see we're skipping strings between fingers 4, 3 and 2 at the beginning. You may also be able to spot that we've got a slightly larger space between fingers 1 and 2. You can see that we're starting by going up. Our highest note is here, and we go down from there. As we go down, you've got 4 notes next to each other. Once you've created all these connections for your brain, I promise you won't be starting from scratch the next day. And even if you found you've forgotten some of that, you will find your way back so much quicker. And the music on the page will also be so much more help once you've found the patterns from your story in the score. If you're worried that memorizing prevents you from learning to read music, please be kind to yourself. Our brains are wired to go for the easy solution, and if you find memorizing music easy, your brain will likely go down that route. But you can use this talent to your advantage. Be mindful when you practice, so you can spot the moment when you start memorizing and choose how to proceed from there. You have quite a few options: to extract a smaller section, to go back in the music and add more chunks before what you've already memorized, or going for a completely different piece and coming back in a few minutes. You can use memorizing to your advantage by pushing a little bit further and working on moving the music to your long-term memory. And remember to make some time to practice reading music away from your pieces, so the tunes that you play are not the only ones where you get to read the notes. Now, I'm curious to hear from you. What do you find easier, memorizing or reading music? And if you happen to be annoyed by memorizing things too quickly, which of these tips are you going to try first? Let me know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to get notified about future episodes of the Coffee Break Harp. I will see you here for another one very soon. Take care for now. Bye!